They became known as the Railway Rapists, a chilling moniker for two men whose crimes terrorized London. Their names were John Duffy and David Mulcahy. Together, they orchestrated a string of rapes and murders that left a dark stain on the city's history. Their attacks were not random acts of impulse. Central to their twisted preparation was a chilling ritual: listening to Michael Jackson's Thriller before they hunted their victims. This wasn't just background music. The song served as a catalyst, a twisted mantra to fuel their violent fantasies. It was a crucial part of their preparation for the horrors they were about to inflict. Their crimes were meticulously planned and executed with a sadistic precision that defied comprehension. They were predators operating with cold calculation. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. John Duffy and David Mulcahy shared a history that stretched back to childhood. They were friends, classmates, bound by shared experiences. Both were victims of bullying during their formative years. This shared vulnerability forged a bond between them, leading to a sense of unity against the outside world, but also isolation. Their connection deepened through a shared fascination with violence. This disturbing interest manifested early, including acts of cruelty like crushing a hedgehog. They also developed an interest in martial arts. They would later use techniques learned from this discipline to overpower their unsuspecting victims. Their criminal careers began modestly with petty crimes. However, this quickly escalated, moving from minor offenses to robberies and increasingly violent assaults. Duffy's employment with British Rail provided them with intimate knowledge of the railway network. This seemingly innocuous detail would become crucial. Their understanding of train lines and stations offered secluded locations. These isolated spots near the tracks became the hidden stages for their horrific acts. To maintain appearances and avoid suspicion, they fabricated a double life. Both men married and started families, presenting a facade of normalcy to the world. Beneath this surface, Duffy harbored personal frustrations. His sterility reportedly contributed to domestic tensions and instances of violence within his home. The descent into their most heinous crimes was preceded by months of detailed planning. They didn't rush into their campaign of terror. Their preparations were thorough and chillingly professional. They used fake names and accents, wore dark clothing and balaclavas, and armed themselves with knives and duct tape. They devised a method they called hunting parties. This involved staking out areas near train stations, specifically targeting lonely women returning home. Before these hunts began, they would engage in their disturbing ritual. They listened to Michael Jackson's Thriller at full volume, amplifying its effect. The song acted as a powerful mantra for them. It helped them connect with and intensify the violent fantasies that drove their actions. Their first recorded attack occurred on July 1, 1982. They kidnapped a woman near a station as she was returning from a party. This marked the beginning of an initial wave of terror. For 4 years, they conducted a campaign of assaults across London and the surrounding areas. The scope of their attacks was horrifying. They assaulted around 20 women during this period, leaving a trail of trauma. Their modus operandi for the rapes was consistent and sadistic. They would abduct their victims, drag them to secluded spots, often sheds or hidden areas near the tracks. Once isolated, they would blindfold the women, rip off their clothes, and subject them to brutal, sadistic rapes. The violence was calculated and dehumanizing. In the first 12 months alone, they raped 18 women. The frequency of their attacks demonstrated their escalating depravity. The attacks temporarily ceased in the fall of 1983. This pause was later linked to John Duffy's divorce, suggesting a connection between his personal life and the crimes. The attacks resumed in early 1984. However, this new phase brought a terrifying escalation. A new, horrifying element was added to their crimes. The rapes now included murder. Their motive had shifted fundamentally. They were no longer satisfied solely by the sexual aspect of the assaults. They now sought ultimate power, control, and the thrill of inflicting violence and torment. the rapes became a prelude to something darker. The ultimate thrill for them lay in possessing the power to decide over life and death. This became the driving force behind the murders. In July 1985, they committed a particularly brutal act. They brutally raped 3 women in a single night, showcasing their increasing boldness and sadism. Around this time, Duffy was arrested for domestic violence. This incident, though unrelated to the rapes initially, put him on the authorities' radar before the murders began. Following a subsequent rape, a victim provided a description of Duffy. However, she tragically failed to identify him in a police lineup. His release after the failed identification reinforced their feeling of immunity. They believed they were untouchable, leading to further escalation. The first murder occurred on December 20th, 1985. 19-year-old Allison Day was kidnapped, raped, and then strangled with a rope near Hackney Wick Station. Allison Day's body was later discovered. It was found floating in a canal, weighted down with stones in a callous attempt to conceal the crime. The second murder took place on April 17, 1986. 15-year-old Marche Tamboser was accosted at Horsley Station, beaten, raped, and also strangled with a rope. In a disturbing attempt to eliminate evidence, they burned Marche Tamboser's body. They then abandoned her remains in a forest. A crucial piece of evidence was recovered from the Tamboser murder scene. It was a piece of sewn yarn rope, an unusual double-strand cord commonly used on railways. This type of rope provided a vital link. The same distinctive cord had been found on Allison Day's body, connecting the 2 murders. The third murder occurred in May 1986. 29-year-old Anna Locke was murdered after getting off a train at a station in Hertfordshire. Anna Locke's body was discovered 9 weeks later. It was found on an embankment, her hands tied and a sock stuffed in her mouth. With the discovery of the third victim and the linking evidence, police realized the horrifying truth. They were dealing with a serial killer, though initially they believed it was a single perpetrator. A major investigation was launched to apprehend the killer. It was codenamed Operation Trinity. The investigation faced significant challenges from the outset. This was a time before advanced forensic technology like DNA profiling was widely available. The focus of the forensic analysis centered on biological evidence. Blood and semen samples found on the victims became critical clues. Analysis of the blood samples provided a profile of the attacker. He had blood type A and was identified as a secretor, meaning his blood type could be detected in other bodily fluids. Police created a database known as the Z-Men. This database compiled information on 3,000 former sex offenders who had blood type A. Geographical profiling became a key tool in the investigation. Dr. David Cantor, a pioneering psychologist, applied his Cantor circle theory to the case. Cantor's theory posited that serial offenders tend to commit crimes within an area they know well. A circle drawn, connecting the furthest points of the attacks, would likely encompass the killer's home. The profile generated by Cantor proved remarkably accurate. He correctly described 13 out of 17 observations about the killer, including details about his domestic situation and likely residence. The result of this innovative profiling technique was significant. It helped narrow the search area and ultimately led police to focus on John Duffy. John Duffy's apprehension occurred on November 7, 1986. He admitted himself to a psychiatric hospital, a move later suspected as a ploy to feign amnesia. Disturbingly, after his release from the hospital, he committed another attack. He raped a 14-year-old girl who fortunately survived the ordeal. Days later, Duffy was arrested. The charge was stalking and attempted rape in a park, a seemingly minor offense compared to his true crimes. Evidence found at his home was damning. Police discovered knives, violent pornography, books on martial arts and kidnapping techniques, and a coil of Samyarn rope. 5 rape victims were able to identify him in a lineup. Their testimony provided crucial links to the earlier assaults. Based on the evidence and identifications, Duffy was charged. He faced 7 counts of rape and 3 counts of murder. During the investigation, his best friend David Mulcahy was suspected as an accomplice. However, at that time, insufficient evidence was found to link him directly, and he was released. Duffy's trial began in February 1988. He was found guilty of 4 rapes and 2 murders, those of Allison Day and Marcia Tambozer. He was not convicted of Anna Locke's murder at this time. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison for his crimes. The court believed they had convicted the railway rapist. For 9 years, Duffy remained silent about his accomplice. The full truth of the partnership remained hidden. The truth finally emerged under pressure. A psychologist, Dr. Cutler, working with Duffy in prison, managed to get him to implicate David Mulcahy. Mulcahy's trial commenced in February 2001, over a decade after Duffy's conviction. Duffy provided crucial details linking Mulcahy to the crimes. Duffy described specific details only an accomplice would know. This included the location of the thriller tape, the car used, and specific aspects of their modus operandi. Crucially, advanced DNA technology had become available. This allowed investigators to re-examine old evidence. DNA evidence linked Mulcahy directly to 5 rapes, 5 attempted rapes, and the 3 murders, including that of Anna Locke. The science confirmed Duffy's confession. The prosecutor's statement painted a grim picture of Mulcahy. He described how Mulcahy treated victims as mere objects and asserted that he was the instigator of the murders. Expert opinion presented at trial suggested a psychological shift in Mulcahy. Sexual abuse alone became insufficient. He sought the ultimate power and control found in taking a life. Mulcahy was convicted based on the overwhelming evidence. He was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the murders, plus additional years for the rapes and attempted rapes. Both men remain incarcerated for their horrific crimes. They are held in different high-security prisons within the UK system. John Duffy is reportedly held at HMP Frankland. David Mulcahy is believed to be at HMP Full Sutton. Mulcahy continues to maintain his innocence. He reportedly writes letters to the Queen and blames Duffy, calling him a monster. Duffy, in contrast, has reportedly accepted his guilt and responsibility for his actions. He remains in prison, awaiting potential consideration for release after serving his minimum term.